After my adoptive parents passed away, I had to drop out of school and support myself. I started as an apprentice in a chain dessert shop and worked my way up to a senior pastry chef. The job provided food and accommodation, the salary kept increasing, and the boss even gave bonuses. I was quite content with my current life. I had lived in this world for 25 years when one day, strange messages suddenly appeared above my head, making me question if the world I had known for so many years was actually a book or a TV show. That day, a beautifully dressed young lady, adorned in designer clothes, walked into the cake shop and specifically asked to see me.
My name is Emily. I am the adopted daughter of the Yin family, and you are the long-lost true daughter of the Yin family. Inside this box is my gift to you.
She handed me a small gift box and got straight to the point.
The Yin family is practically the wealthiest in our city, often making headlines. You must have heard of them, right?
I wasn't familiar with the concept of wealth, but I had indeed heard of the Yin family, though not through the channels Emily mentioned. Seeing me nod, Emily's smile grew wider as she pointed to my work uniform and hat.
Let's switch places. The Yin family is very wealthy. Once you return, you'll never have to do such menial work again. You can buy all the makeup, bags, and clothes you ever wanted but never dared to buy. You'll live in a big house and have gourmet food every day.
I interrupted her grand promises.
Do I also have a half-brother who wastes his days in debauchery and doesn't even spare his sister? Do I also have a stepmother who is always scheming and would love to see her stepdaughter disappear? Do I also have a scumbag father who isn't satisfied with taking everything and is always looking to sell his daughter to expand his business empire?
Emily's face froze bit by bit. She stared at me in disbelief, unsure how to continue her persuasion.
And my job is not menial work.
What's the point of being a lowly apprentice at someone else's beck and call?
This fake heiress hadn't updated her information about me.
Take back your gift. I won't return to the Yin family. I'd rather do menial work than be the Yin family's heiress.
I rejected her without hesitation and got up to continue my work. The full attendance bonus was 600 yuan a month, and I couldn't afford to miss it. Emily grabbed my arm to stop me from leaving and whispered mysteriously in my ear.
Tell me the truth, have you also been reborn?
Also? I looked her up and down with curiosity and said meaningfully.
So, you've been reborn.
Emily's mouth hung open as if she had an egg stuck in her throat, unable to speak. Of course, I couldn't possibly be reborn like Emily.
Don't worry, I'll keep your secret.
It took Emily a moment to recover from her shock and catch up with me.
I admit, the Yin family is full of troublemakers, but they are still your blood relatives. Don't you want to go back and see them?
No, don't delay my perfect attendance bonus.
The Yin family can give you more money.
Money earned by myself is spent with more peace of mind.
Your biological mother passed away just after your stepmother came in. In my previous life, I only found out before I left that she was harmed by the stepmother. Don't you want to seek justice for your biological mother?
I don't know her, never met her, don't care.
You are simply cold-blooded and heartless.
Seeing that I was unmoved, Emily felt very frustrated and gradually stopped following me. But her voice still reached my ears.
If you don't want to go back, then don't. I'll face them myself. If they don't let me live well, I'll drag them down with me.
I remained indifferent. Emily dragging anyone down was not as important as my $600.
Hey, you better, absolutely don't fall in love with David again.
Who? Why does that sound familiar? Who cares who it is? I waved my hand and walked away. I'm very loyal. My true love is named money. At this moment, the long-lost bullet comments appeared again. One by one, semi-transparent boxes popped up above my head.
Trash production team, Please respect the original work. Why did two minor female characters become the real and fake heiresses? Skip. I only want to see the tragic love story of David and Jessica. Two minor characters who left early shouldn't add scenes for themselves. Have some shame.
So my world is a TV series adapted from a book? And, leaving early, does that refer to me? Seeing me return, Emily's dejected face showed a look of joy.
Have you thought it through?
What was your ending in your previous life?
You don't know my ending?
I never said I was reborn. The bullet comments were still rampant.
What the heck? What previous life? Don't tell me this minor character is also reborn. The screenwriter has ruined the original work. What a mess. I'm quitting the show. Refund my membership fee.
In your previous life, how did you leave? Emily pursed her lips, seemingly reluctant to tell me. But the bullet comments had already revealed her secret.
Emily was set up by her stepmother and sent to the male lead David's bed. After being taken advantage of, she blocked a knife for David while vulnerable and left disgracefully. Haha.
I got the hang of using the bullet comments to get real-time answers. Do you want to know my ending?
What was your ending in your previous life?
I'm not telling you. After all, I didn't know my original ending either. Emily glared at me angrily. The bullet comments started up again.
What is this minor character so smug about? She left even more miserably than Emily.
Do you want to know? Then curse David a few times for me. If I feel satisfied, maybe I'll tell you. Sure enough, the bullet comments exploded.
Go to hell. How dare you curse our David? Aren't you just a sycophant? You can't get close to our David, so you want others to insult him. This minor character is so disgusting. You deserve to be attacked by 5 thugs hired by our male lead. You deserve to go crazy and have your organs taken by traffickers.
The more I read the bullet comments, the more my hair stood on end, and my fists clenched. I couldn't accept that my original ending was like this.
It's best if you understand. Stay away from David to save your life. He's not a good person and not easy to deal with. Falling for him is courting disaster.
I watched Emily walk away bit by bit and suddenly shouted at her. Emily, let's join forces. I was very sure I wasn't a love-struck fool. I firmly believed I was very clear-headed. My only pursuit in life was money. How could I become a sycophant for the male lead? This doesn't make sense. There must be some uncontrollable factor that could lead me down a path of no return. I needed an ally, someone to help each other when necessary, to change the original ending. In the end, I accepted the gift Emily brought, a pendant necklace worth over $10,000. I made her a chocolate cake in return. Half a month later, the family held the company's annual banquet. Emily and I stood together in the magnificent banquet hall, openly accepting the scrutiny of the company's senior executives. My biological father, Richard, glanced at me and then darkened his face. My stepmother's eyes flashed with panic and disgust.
Dad, look closely. Doesn't Sophia look exactly like Mom? She is the girl who was switched with me back then, Mom's biological daughter, and grandfather's true granddaughter.
The crowd was in an uproar.
Emily, the world is big, and many people look alike. We can't just assume she is related to our family because of her appearance.
Emily directly took out a paternity test report from her bag and handed it to the senior executives to pass around. The paternity test report was between Richard and me, proving that we were indeed biological father and daughter. Coupled with my face, which bore an 80% resemblance to my mother's, most people believed it. Although my scumbag father and I disliked each other at first sight, the facts were undeniable. In front of my grandfather's former subordinates, he had no reason not to acknowledge me.
This is wonderful. Now Michael has 2 sisters, and you have another daughter to help you, dear.
The Michael she mentioned was the child my biological mother adopted 20 years ago, whose full name was Michael. My biological mother never knew that Michael was actually the illegitimate son Lily had with my scumbag father. This illegitimate son was even a year older than me. TSK Lily's words automatically translated in my scumbag father's ears to, "This is great. Now you have 2 daughters to use for your ambitions."
Dad, I will definitely help you.
My scumbag father's expression softened. However, my help was not the kind he imagined.
Dad, when will you arrange for me to join the company? I've thought it over. The company was founded by my grandfather, and I will do my best to carry on his and my mother's legacy. You've worked hard these past 6 months, and I will help you retire early and enjoy life. To honor my grandfather and mother, I won't change my surname to yours. I will take my grandfather's surname. From now on, I am Sophia.
My scumbag father's face turned as black as the bottom of a pot. My words caused a huge commotion. My grandfather's former subordinates, who had been marginalized by my scumbag father over the past 6 months, now openly and secretly supported me in reclaiming the company. In front of the senior executives, my scumbag father had no choice but to arrange a position for me in the company. He gave me a highly specialized technical research and development department manager position, claiming it was because he valued me and entrusted me with such an important department. I understood that my scumbag father wanted to maintain the image of a good father in front of everyone while hoping I would give up due to the difficulty of the job. In his eyes, how could someone who needs dough possibly be competent? He didn't know that I immediately handed over all the duties of the position to Emily. After all, everyone has their own expertise, and mine was making desserts. 2 days later, I met my nominal brother, Michael. I made a public appearance at the annual meeting and secured the voice of the technical department, forcing him to rush back from abroad. Standing in the lavishly decorated living room, he gave me a cold glance before his gaze stuck to Emily.
Emily, I never thought you weren't my biological sister, but this is actually good.
He reached out to touch Emily's face, but the stepmother appeared with 3 glasses of milk, interrupting Michael's next move.
Emily, Sophia, it's getting late. Have some milk and go to your rooms early.
According to Emily, tonight was the time in her previous life when the stepmother drugged her and sent her to the male lead. To avoid suspicion, Emily drank the milk in front of the stepmother and then quickly induced vomiting once she returned to her room. Seeing me leisurely watching from the side, Emily felt a bit unbalanced.
Aren't you going to throw up the milk? Aren't you afraid yours is spiked too?
I didn't drink it.
Emily fell silent. We had already devised a plan to counter the stepmother, but Michael's unexpected arrival complicated things. I had just sneaked into Emily's room when Michael came to pick the lock. Emily, furious, hid a fruit knife behind her back. Michael broke in and tiptoed inside.
Emily, I missed you so much while I was abroad.
But before he could touch Emily, I hit him hard from behind. We took advantage of the situation, dressed Michael in Emily's usual pajamas, put a wig on him, and gave him heavy makeup. We turned off the bright lights and switched to a dim wall lamp. After finishing everything, we hid in the closet. Soon, we saw the stepmother leading 2 men into the room, who quickly carried the unconscious Michael away in a sack. One of the men even complained softly about how heavy the person was. Soon, the sound of a car engine starting downstairs grew fainter. Emily was deeply moved, feeling she had finally escaped a disaster in this life. We sat in the closet, sharing a pineapple beer.
I wonder if the stepmother will be furious when she finds out she sent her precious son into the fire pit.
Serves her right.
Bad people get what they deserve.
This cheap drink isn't bad.
I don't know if the stepmother will be furious, but the comments started flooding in again. Holy crap! How did the plot change again? I'm so anxious. I have to say, this change is good. The stepmother sent a man instead of a woman, which means this change saved David's innocence from being lost to a minor character. Aren't you worried the male lead swings both ways? The one who took the hit is this minor character brother. Holy crap! The male lead is so ruthless. He directly castrated his savior and sent him to Africa. So thrilling! I love this kind of ruthless and crazy male lead. Emily nudged me with her elbow, seeing me dumbfounded by the comments.
What's the next plan? The stepmother won't let this go.
It's not just the stepmother. This time, the scumbag father will also collapse.
After all, now there's no one left to carry on the family line. Sure enough, the next morning, we woke up to find the stepmother with 5 finger marks on her cheeks, crying on the floor. And my scumbag father was nowhere to be found.
It's all your fault! You ruined my Michael! You wretched girl! Michael liked you so much, and you harmed him!
If you weren't so wicked, your precious son wouldn't have suffered this.
Emily was no longer polite and kicked the stepmother away. Later, we didn't see the stepmother for several days. Rumor had it she went to Africa to find her son. The scumbag father, once again without a wife, found himself 3 lovers and publicly announced he would marry whoever gave birth to a son first. Emily and I watched all this coldly. The scumbag father was eager to continue the family line, and I was busy establishing myself in the company. Of course, it was Emily who did all the hard work. I got so bored that I developed a few new desserts and decided to open my own dessert shop once the Yin family matters were settled. One day, while I was out buying dessert ingredients, I unexpectedly ran into the male lead, David, despite all my efforts to avoid him. Knowing the plot and my original fate, I couldn't muster any goodwill towards this man. Looking at his handsome face, I was thinking about how to make good use of the video on my phone, which I had painstakingly obtained, showing the male lead personally cutting Michael. David blocked my way and stared at me for a long time. He rudely reached out to touch my face.
Your eyes look a lot like hers.
Then, I disdainfully dodged his hand.
Huh? Didn't they say this minor character fell in love with our David at first sight? It doesn't seem like it.
I think the minor character looks at our David more like an enemy, don't you think? Isn't he an enemy? According to the original ending, this flamboyant man and I were mortal enemies. Whose eyes do they look like? The female lead's? No, it's his first love. The female lead was initially a substitute for his first love, but later he realized the female lead was his true love, and then he pursued her relentlessly. They ended up together happily ever after. If she was his true love, why did he forcibly take her kidney for his first love? This true love isn't worth it. What do you know? This precisely shows they were truly in love. Besides, later the male lead found a matching kidney for the female lead and replaced the one she lost. Reading the comments, I felt a herd of wild horses galloping through my mind. When I got home, I interrupted Emily, who was diligently working.
Do you know who David's first love is?
Emily was confused and completely unaware.
I just ran into David, and I realized he has a first love in his heart.
Mentioning David made Emily's face turn pale quickly. I kept an eye on the comments but found that none of them could accurately say who David's first love was, how they met, or where she was now. Emily leaned weakly on my shoulder, trembling slightly. Her voice was very soft and low, so low that only the two of us could hear it.
Sophia, didn't you ask me how I passed away in my previous life? I'll tell you now. After being stabbed, I didn't die immediately. I was still conscious. I thought I would be taken to the hospital for treatment, but instead, my organs were taken while I was still alive. That private hospital belonged to David.
I refused her without hesitation and got up to continue my work. The perfect attendance bonus was 600 yuan a month, and I couldn't afford to miss it.
Tell me the truth, did you also come back to life?
Also? I looked her up and down in surprise, with a meaningful expression.
So, you came back to life.
Emily's mouth hung open as if she had a lump in her throat, unable to speak. Meanwhile, the comments exploded once again.
What's going on? Why is the female lead starting to plot against the male lead with outsiders? This show is completely falling apart.
It's more than falling apart, it's been altered beyond recognition.
I actually find the current plot more engaging. 3 women teaming up against the dark forces. Just thinking about it is thrilling.
Thrilling, my foot. This is nonsense.
Why are you swearing? Such ill-mannered people probably grew up without parents.
The previous gloomy mood was swept away, and I cheerfully created a small group for the 3 of us, ignoring Emily and Jessica's objections, and stubbornly renamed the group 3 Women as a Weapon. Despite it being the middle of the night, Emily and I enthusiastically shared David's past experiences with Jessica.
The David family is one of the top elite families in the country, and naturally, David wasn't the only candidate for heir. Initially, David was just an illegitimate child who couldn't make it to the stage, living abroad as a nobody for many years. Until 3 years ago, there was a major upheaval within the David family, and David returned to the country in high profile, becoming the officially designated heir by the old master of the family. Rumor has it that during those years abroad, he had a very tough time, even developing a mood disorder.
Moreover, David has a white moonlight in his heart. His sudden confession to you might not be because of some whimsical love at first sight, but because you resemble his white moonlight.
Perhaps at first, Jessica had some fantasies and expectations about her handsome new boyfriend, but upon learning that she might just be a stand-in, the innocent female lead was so angry that her eyes turned red, gritting her teeth, almost becoming a red-eyed rabbit. From the comments, I learned that in the middle of the story, the innocent female lead, upon discovering she was just a stand-in, ran away with a child. Now, by letting the innocent female lead know some things in advance, I avoided the runaway with a child scenario, thus reducing the chances of her and David ending up together.
The David family has been secretly searching for a matching kidney recently. It seems that David's white moonlight is in poor health and needs an organ transplant. You should be very careful.
Saying this, I glanced at her slender waist. Jessica shivered on the spot, covering her kidney area, wishing she could break up immediately and have nothing more to do with David. However, no matter how clear-headed Jessica was, she was still an orphan. Facing a giant like the David family was like standing in front of an elephant as a tiny ant. She had already caught David's eye, and next, it would be a mix of coercion and persuasion to get Jessica to donate one of her kidneys. We took all precautions, placing the most advanced tracking device on Jessica, a cute-looking keychain that was actually a hidden alarm, and agreed to check in every hour. I worried that in the blink of an eye, Jessica would be taken away by David. However, I never dreamed that it wouldn't be Jessica who got taken away, but me. I woke up alone in an airtight operating room, filled with regret.
How could I have forgotten that I, too, could be a victim of something sinister?
At the same time, I was puzzled. Why was it that Emily, Jessica, and I were all matched with this flamboyant man's ideal type?
It couldn't be based on some facial similarity. And who exactly was that mysterious person no one knew about?
While I was deep in thought, the door to the operating room opened. David, looking all proper in a white coat and gold-rimmed glasses, walked in slowly.
Why did you capture me?
Because I wanted to.
As he spoke, I felt a sharp pain in my arm. I looked down to see a transparent tube inserted into my arm, with warm, red blood flowing into a blood bag. David only removed the needle once the blood bag was full.
Panda blood, quite valuable.
I wanted to jump up and lash out at David in anger and fear, causing sweat to bead on my forehead.
These eyes are mesmerizing.
What do you want?
David sat down beside me, his fingers brushing my cheek.
Behave, and I'll let you be a blood donor for a while longer. If you anger me, I'll have to send you to meet your maker.
This pervert was treating me like a blood donor.
You shouldn't have been talking nonsense in front of my girlfriend. You made a mistake, and now you must be punished.
I felt a chill in my heart. Could Jessica have betrayed me? I wondered if Emily had noticed my disappearance. Looking at the floating comments, I decided to tell a big lie.
Do you know the truth about this world?
What are you talking about?
You're actually the main antagonist in a book, and Jessica is the heroine. She is someone you can never truly have, someone forever out of your reach. If you let me go now, I can help you turn the tables and crush the male lead.
David laughed so hard he could barely breathe.
That's the funniest story I've ever heard.
Believe it or not, my body may perish, but my soul is eternal. I can wait for the next time I enter the book. Without me, you'll have to follow fate's plan. You don't even know who the male lead is or who your opponents are.
I was inwardly anxious, praying that I could deceive David. David's eyes darkened ominously. He grabbed my collar. I looked him in the eye, showing no fear.
Think about your life. Isn't it tragic, yet you always manage to turn things around at critical moments? Do you think it's because of your strength or luck? No, it's because you're destined to be the main antagonist. You haven't reached the top yet, so how can the male lead defeat you? Without that intense satisfaction, readers won't stay interested.
From David's twitching face, I knew he half believed me. Perhaps some past events were too unreasonable, making him start to doubt.
Why can't I be the male lead?
The comments were filled with insults towards me, with original fans protesting vehemently.
How could someone as unclean as you become the male lead?
How am I unclean?
His rough hand gripped my neck, the suffocating feeling growing stronger. I only looked at him with pity. David released me in frustration and asked again.
Why can't I be the male lead?
The family and you think you fooled everyone, but don't forget, I have a God's perspective. From birth, you were destined not to be the male lead because you're an illegitimate child. Your biological mother was a disreputable socialite. Readers wouldn't accept someone with such a disgraceful background as the male lead.
David went berserk, smashing everything in the operating room. He gradually calmed down, his eyes filled with dark hatred.
I can temporarily stop drawing your blood, but don't let me find out you're lying to me. Otherwise, I'll make your life a living hell.
Is Michael still alive?
Aren't you supposed to have a God's perspective? Don't you know?
You took his organs while he was still alive.
David's face darkened again. It seemed I was right. This was the true fate of Emily in the previous life.
It seems you know me well. Yes, I didn't even give him anesthesia. I just opened him up while he was still alive. Scared?
I couldn't help but shiver. At that moment, the door was forcefully broken open from the outside, and a group of uniformed officers streamed in. Before David could react, they pinned him to the ground and handcuffed him.
I knew I was saved and collapsed on the operating table, smiling at David's disbelief.
David had dug a basement in an abandoned factory for his shady dealings, and the operating room where I was held was also there.
How did the police find me in less than a day? I was abducted while walking near my home in the evening, and there weren't many people around. I thought it would take a long time for anyone to notice I was missing.
Until they took a tiny listening device out of my pendant necklace.
Goodness! This girl had given me a listening device as a welcome gift from the start?
Of course, the contents of the listening device couldn't directly convict David. A month later, the police had gathered all the evidence of David's crimes, thanks to his half-brother, James. David had lived with his mother in a murky world since childhood. To accumulate wealth and gain recognition from the He family, he had been involved in human trafficking for years. After returning to the country, he didn't restrain himself or give up his illegal activities. Instead, he used these shady dealings to compete with James. James was publicly removed from the heir list by David, but it was just a ploy to make David lower his guard. James had been secretly collecting evidence of David's crimes and weaknesses. David's reign as the male lead ended after committing numerous crimes. James was reinstated as the He family heir, and the He family completely abandoned David, removing him from the family overnight. David was sentenced to death and executed immediately. Poor him, he didn't realize he had become the He family's discard. Until the moment of execution, he was still dreaming that the He family would rescue him. With David's fall, stepmother Lily also returned to the country. After several months of searching for her son in Africa, she had become tanned. The police notified her that Michael's body had been found. Upon learning that her beloved son had his organs removed months ago, stepmother collapsed on the spot. Handling Michael's funeral alone, she discovered that Richard had found 3 lovers while she was in Africa, and now, one of them was pregnant, standing arrogantly in Michael's mourning hall, adding salt to stepmother's wounds.
Lily, you're already past the best age for having children, and now you've lost your son. I heard it was your fault. You can't let Richard's family line end, can you?
At this moment, stepmother thought of me, her voice trembling.
Richard's family line won't end. He has a biological daughter.
I laughed heartlessly. My surname is Yu, not Yin. The lover became even more arrogant.
Now that I'm carrying Richard's son, Lily, sign the papers.
Richard timely handed over the divorce agreement. Stepmother screamed and lunged at her, wishing she could end the life of the unborn child. Richard couldn't let her succeed, protecting the lover and her unborn child behind him. The couple fought, Richard's face was scratched bloody, and he smashed a vase over stepmother's head. Stepmother's eyes rolled back, and she fainted on the spot. In the end, she couldn't escape the fate of being left with nothing. Emily and I visited stepmother in the hospital once. The middle-aged woman, not yet 50, looked like a 70-year-old, her face full of decay, life slipping away. After we left, stepmother turned herself in. She confessed that over a year ago, my biological mother was harmed by her and Richard together. Richard didn't live to see his youngest son born, instead, he was handcuffed. Standing in front of my biological mother's grave, Emily cried her heart out. I looked at the woman in the photo, who resembled me by 80%, and softly said, "Rest in peace." On the day Richard was sentenced to life imprisonment, his lover, heavily pregnant, cried and begged me to take care of her and her unborn child. I tilted my head and said coldly, "My surname is Yu. What does the Yin family's child have to do with me?" I heard that later, the lover terminated her pregnancy. Now, the Yin family line truly ended. Emily also changed her name to Sophia and was listed on the same household registration as me. I took over the company that belonged to my grandfather and biological mother, but I kept Sophia with a small share, making her work hard to manage the company for me. As for me, I established my own dessert brand, and my career flourished. Our lives became increasingly beautiful.